Okay, my friends, there is absolutely now no question about it. Yesterday will go down as a day for the history books. President Trump, in a dramatic U-turn, has shocked Europe, shocked the world, and shocked the markets. At the beginning of the day, there was tension between the United States and the European Union. In particular, Britain, France, Germany, Denmark, obviously, over the issue of Greenland. There was talk of a possible trade war, a diplomatic crisis, and maybe even the end of NATO itself. By the end of the day, following a masterful speech by Trump, one of the most forceful, powerful, important speeches of his entire presidency, everything has flipped. We have, as President Trump said, the framework of a future deal for the United States to acquire Greenland. This was his message late last night after intense negotiations behind the scenes between himself, his team, and the leading European powers. And it's not just that we have the framework of a deal. Trump also said he is calling off the additional tariffs that he was threatening to impose, 10% in February, eventually 25% in June, on 8 European countries. The trade war, it now looks like, is over. At least for now, it is over. Or it's on pause, let's put it that way. The markets immediately reacted. The Dow Jones stock market soared. The NASDAQ, S&P 500, massive gains. Investors are happy, but more importantly, Trump now may have put himself into history, into the history books. So listen now to President Trump. As he delivered his speech, he destroyed one of the big hysterical narratives, the fear-mongering, the panic porn that the media and the Europeans were pumping up, that Trump now was the second coming of Genghis Khan, of Julius Caesar, of Hitler, that he was going to unilaterally invade and annex Greenland, and from Greenland, he would just keep on rolling across Europe. It was preposterous. It was absurd. It was never going to happen, but it didn't matter. The Europeans were pushing it. The media was pushing it. The poor people in Greenland were protesting, fearing that the 82nd Airborne was going to land any second and invade and take over their nation. Instead, Trump told the entire room of European leaders and the globalist elites who gather at Davos, I am not a warmonger. I never have been. I never will be. And he told them, I'm telling you, we will not use military force. Not now, not ever, to acquire Greenland. Roll cut 7A, Mike.
So we want a piece of ice for world protection, and they won't give it. We've never asked for anything else, and we could have kept that piece of land, and we didn't. So they have a choice. You can say yes, and we will be very appreciative, or you can say no, and we will remember.
He roasted the elites. He scorched them. I'm telling you, he absolutely scorched them. It was a powerful speech. It was a brutally honest speech. He did not hold back. And you can see the European leaders and the globalist elites were visibly at times almost pained. You can see it on their face. They were wincing as Trump delivered truth bomb after truth bomb after truth bomb. And what he told them was that without us, you would be, pretty much verbatim, without us, you would be speaking German today. Let me be very clear. We saved you in World War I. We saved you in World War II. We saved you during the Cold War. We defended and protected you and liberated you from Nazi Germany and Stalin's Russia. And we got nothing or very little in return. We're not asking for much. We just want a landmass covered in ice that is of a strategic, vital importance for our national security and, frankly, the security of Europe, the security of the West, and ultimately the security of the world. And we're willing to put a lucrative offer, a commercial sale, in order to purchase Greenland. We're not going to send in troops and just annex it. Stop lying and stop with the panic porn. Greenland wants to be independent of Denmark. Denmark has done nothing for Greenland. Nothing. You never cared about this place until I said we want it. And all of a sudden now, you want to make this the future of the West? The future of NATO's alliance hangs in the balance? The future of the West hangs in the balance? Have you all lost your minds? And then Trump reminded them of a little bit of history that has been conveniently left out by the Europeans, by the globalists, and by the lying media here in the United States. When Nazi Germany invaded Denmark in 1940, and by the way, I think literally it took them 10 minutes, and they rolled over and took Copenhagen, the capital. It was the United States that then took over control of Greenland. We took it as a protectorate for a decade. We ran Greenland. We put our bases on Greenland. It was ours for 10 years. That's why Trump was saying, it was ours for a decade. We had it. And then in 1951, we decided to give it back to Denmark. He says, you think the Danes have ever appreciated everything we did for them? Now, we did sign a treaty, a defense treaty. We have a space base there. We have other U.S. military bases there. We have a mine there because we're trying to develop some of the resources. But this was ours for nearly a decade. And Trump was like, what's the problem? You guys never cared for Greenland until now. You've done nothing to develop Greenland until now because suddenly I want it. And so Trump basically told them, you can choose us or you can choose Greenland, but you can't have both. And obviously, they need us a hell of a lot more than we need NATO and we need the European Union. He called the Europeans bluff. And he essentially broke them at Davos. And so they haven't quite told us all the details of this new future framework. But media reports now talking to both European officials who are involved in these negotiations, and it's going to be between NATO and between the United States. And Trump administration officials, here is now, it looks like what we're going to get. Number one, the United States is going to get the right of first refusal for any mineral deal or any attempt to tap into the rare earth minerals or develop any port in Greenland. That effectively will freeze out Russia and China. Trump said Russia and China covet Greenland. We must have an agreement whereby they can never touch an inch or grab a foothold of Greenland. The Danes, the Europeans, NATO have agreed. Furthermore, Trump wanted complete and total ownership of the entire island. It doesn't look like he's going to get that. But what he's going to get, and this is almost as important, and this is the key to the whole deal, is that we're going to have bases that we're going to develop around the entire island, especially the northern part of Greenland, which is what we need for the Golden Dome, for our national defense shield to protect us, North America, and our security perimeter here from any potential Chinese or Russian attack. And those bases underneath the base is going to be sovereign American territory. We're not leasing the base, and we're not leasing the land that the base is going to be on. But in fact, they are going to give us sovereignty over the bases. In fact, those bases are ours. And the land that they're on will be sovereign American territory. And so, as Trump said, not only is this going to be an incredible deal, this is a deal that's not just the long term, it's forever. Because we're not renting it from Greenland or renting it from Denmark. We're not leasing it from Denmark or leasing it from Greenland, because leases expire, ownership can change. This could be only 50 years or 100 years. No, we're going to own the land. It's going to be sovereign American territory around every single base that we build in Greenland.
Nå det endelig helg hos Meny, og denne helgen vi helt rå på et stort utvalg ferske skalldyr. Vi gir deg 30% rabatt på skalldyr fra fiskedisken, og her finner du blant annet reker, blåskjell, håndrenset krabbe og østers. Besøk oss for tips og inspirasjon til helgemiddagen. Meny, spiser du bedre, lever du bedre.
Okay, President Trump now says they have a framework for a future deal regarding Greenland. And so the tariff war is, at least for now, off. He has called off imposing those additional tariffs on 8 European countries. Stock market reacted very positively. And it looks like now the crisis over Greenland has been diffused. Trump now says it's going to be an incredible deal. He says it's a huge victory strategically, economically for the United States. The details will be coming out very soon, but in essence, as I just laid out in my opening monologue, the United States now is going to be developing bases all over Greenland, especially northern Greenland, as part of their Golden Dome, our national defense shield, and the bases will be sovereign U.S. territory. So we're not getting the whole island, it appears, but Trump says, forget the island. What we want are the bases strategically placed around Greenland for the Golden Dome, and we will own the land under and around the bases. So those bases will not be leased. They're ours on sovereign, and it will be sovereign U.S. territory. And apparently Denmark and Greenland have agreed to this in principle. And furthermore, Russia and China will not be allowed to purchase any mines, develop any minerals, or set up their own port or harbors in Greenland. It will freeze out Russia and China completely from Greenland. But Trump says this now gives us the means to secure dominance over the Arctic and to protect the American homeland through a massive intercontinental defense shield. So my question to you, is this a geopolitical victory for the United States? Is it a victory for Donald Trump? Or, as some are saying, and I'm getting text messages as we speak, that essentially Trump had to save face, that in the end he got what the Danes and the Europeans were willing to offer from the beginning, except now with all the saber rattling, the bullying of the last couple days, the needless threats, it has made Trump look bad, made the United States look bad, and it has damaged our relations with the Europeans. So some of you are quite skeptical about this, saying in the end, Trump got nothing more than what the Europeans had given him early on, and he that needlessly then exacerbated the problem by publicly threatening to potentially take over Greenland on our own. I think he got what he wanted. I think he got more than what the Europeans ultimately were willing to give, and then he forced their hand. And I think now he has set us up perfectly for the Golden Dome and for making Greenland essentially, in everything but name, a U.S. protectorate. But that's me. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. Listen now to President Trump. it was really his speech yesterday that completely shifted the dynamics at Davos and really pushed many Europeans to get off the fence and come to an agreement. Listen now to Trump saying, yes, every NATO ally has an obligation to be able to defend their own territory. And the problem that Denmark has, and that frankly Europe has, you don't have the capacity, the military firepower to defend Greenland should either Russia or China decide to invade it. The only country that can really protect and secure Greenland is the United States. Roll cut 1A, Mike.
But every NATO ally has an obligation to be able to defend their own territory. And the fact is, no nation or group of nations is in any position to be able to secure Greenland other than the United States. We're a great power, much greater than people even understand. I think they found that out 2 weeks ago in Venezuela.
So he's, basically saying, look what we did to Maduro. Look how impressive and efficient and decisive that operation was. Very few countries, in fact, maybe no country, could have pulled it off the way we did. That's what you need if you want to protect Greenland. Now, he then, and I think this is where he really unmasked Denmark and the leadership of Denmark and the leadership of the European Union. He said, let's just go down history lane just for a couple of minutes. You're all acting like we've never had anything to do with Denmark. Have you all forgotten World War II? Listen now to Trump explain when during World War II, the Germans invaded Denmark, Denmark fell, and you know who came to Greenland's rescue? Uncle Sam. Roll cut 1B, Mike.
We saw this in World War II when Denmark fell to Germany after just 6 hours of fighting and was totally unable to defend either itself or Greenland. So the United States was then compelled, we did it, we felt an obligation to do it, to send our own forces to hold the Greenland territory. And hold it we did, at great cost and expense. They didn't have a chance of getting on it, and they tried. Denmark knows that.
Of course they know that. Okay, President Trump now announces a framework that he says now will cement a deal with Greenland or over Greenland that will achieve almost all of America's strategic goals. He says it is a huge diplomatic victory for the United States, a big geopolitical victory as well. And in the process, he clearly humiliated the Europeans. In particular, Britain, France, Germany, Denmark, obviously, which was leading this united opposition against Trump, against the United States, to acquire Greenland, as well as in Norway, Sweden, Finland, and the Netherlands. So, President Trump yesterday delivered a very powerful, at times fiery speech, and it clearly, you can tell, had the weight of history behind it, had the weight of conviction behind it, and really, you could tell, shook the Europeans to their very foundations. He did not hold back. And so, as I was saying before the break, there's Trump saying, look, whoa. When the Germans invaded in World War II and Denmark fell in 6 hours, Greenland, the Germans were then going to make a move on Greenland, obviously. The United States stepped in and saved Greenland. We took it over, and we took it over for 10 years at tremendous cost and at a tremendous price. And we made sure the Nazis never got a foothold on Greenland. And then, inexplicably, because he says it was a foolish decision on the part of American leaders at the time, and honestly, I think he's right, we just gave Greenland back to Denmark. We just gave it back. And so his argument is, We gave it back for nothing after having defended it for 10 years as Denmark was under Nazi occupation. And then after the Second World War, as Denmark was busy preoccupied rebuilding their shattered country and economy. And then in the early 1950s, we just gave it back to him. And he says, I'm sorry. But, you know, you're forgetting history. You're forgetting everything we've done, for Greenland and Denmark and, frankly, all of Europe. Listen now to Trump. Roll cut 1B. Mike.
We literally set up bases on Greenland for Denmark. We fought for Denmark. We weren't fighting for anyone else. We were fighting to save it for Denmark. Big, beautiful piece of ice. It's hard to call it land. It's a big piece of ice. But we saved Greenland and successfully prevented our enemies from gaining a foothold in our hemisphere. So we did it for ourselves also. And then after the war, which we won it big. Without us, right now you'd all be speaking German and a little Japanese, perhaps. After the war, we gave Greenland back to Denmark. How stupid were we to do that? But we did it. But we gave it back. But how ungrateful are they now?
Yeah, just completely right. Look, and I would just add, forget the Danes. Yes, they're ungrateful. How ungrateful the Europeans are after everything we've done for them. And he made that point again later in his speech. Because as he pointed out, he said, you know, we're not asking for the sky. We want to make a bid on Greenland. That's all. That's it. That's all we're asking for. We're not asking for, I don't know what, you people are asking like we're asking for the world. We just want to make a competitive bid, a commercial sale, and purchase Greenland. And you won't even allow us to buy Greenland after everything we've done for you? Like, this is insulting. Now, I don't want to get ahead of myself. President Trump, then it was like a reality check. It's like almost like the proverbial slap in the face, like slap, slap. Like, can you all wake up? The world has changed. The Soviet Union is gone. China is rising. By the way, I don't know if any of you know this. China recently has declared itself an Arctic nation. An Arctic nation. Look how far China is from the Arctic. And they're claiming themselves to be an Arctic nation. They're making a claim to the Arctic. The Russians now are flooding the Arctic area with submarines and ships. Why? Because Putin is claiming the Arctic. And the reason why Russia and China are claiming the Arctic is because underneath now they have found almost unlimited reserves of oil and natural gas. And so the Arctic, which in the past, well, it was just a sheet of ice, who cares, now has become one of the most coveted geopolitical locations in the world. And of course, the gateway to the Arctic is Greenland. And so Trump is telling everybody in the room, the Chinese are not giving up. The Russians are not giving up. In fact, they're going to intensify their push, A, for Greenland, B, for the Arctic in general. And if we don't wake up, we're going to lose the Arctic, we're going to lose Greenland, and I'm telling you, this is going to put us at a massive disadvantage. And so he then, and by the way, he makes it very clear. He says, listen, yes, Greenland has a ton of rare earth minerals, no question. But there are hundreds and hundreds of feet buried under frozen ice. It's going to take a lot of money, a lot of investment, a lot of effort to get those rare earth minerals out of the ground. He goes, what I really want Greenland for, yes, the rare earth is nice. The gold, the silver, yes, no question. It's got a lot of wealth. But it's its geographic strategic location. The missiles that if Russia were ever to fire at us would go through Greenland. Our Golden Dome, we need the forward position of Greenland for radar sensors to detect incoming missiles, for space dominance and space surveillance, to be able to shoot down missiles before they arrive and hit us in our hemisphere and in the North American continent. He said, so more than anything else, I need Greenland for the Golden Dome. And we're committed to building the Golden Dome. We have to. Because the rise of Russia and China now threatens our very security here at home. You can either bury your head in the sand, or in this case, the ice, or you can face reality in the face. And Trump is saying, I'd rather confront reality in the face. So, listen now to President Trump saying Greenland is not a part of Europe. It is a part of North America. It always has been. And it is now a core national security interest of the United States. I'm not putting alliances first. I'm not putting globalists first. I'm not putting corporations first. I'm not putting the interests of foreign countries first. I'm putting the interest of my people, my nation, my country, the United States first. Greenland is a core national interest. And we're telling the Russians and the Chinese, you're never going to get it. Because we'll never allow a hostile power to ever come into our sphere of influence. Roll cut 2A, Mike.
This enormous unsecured island is actually part of North America, on the northern frontier of the Western Hemisphere. That's our territory. It is therefore a core national security interest of the United States of America. And in fact, it's been our policy for hundreds of years to prevent outside threats from entering our hemisphere, and we've done it very successfully. We've never been stronger than we are now. That's why American presidents have sought to purchase Greenland for nearly 2 centuries. You know, for 2 centuries they've been trying to do it. They should have kept it after World War II, but they had a different president. That's all right. People think differently. Much more necessary now than it was at that time, however.
So, I mean, I could go on and on, but the point is, you get the gist. He let it be known, you have your red lines. Well, I'm telling you, we have our red lines. And Greenland now is a red line. And so once he made it very clear that for our Western Hemispheric defensive perimeter,
Nå det endelig helg hos Meny, og denne helgen vi helt rå på et stort utvalg ferske skalldyr. Vi gir deg 30% rabatt på skalldyr fra fiskedisken, og her finner du blant annet reker, blåskjell, håndrenset krabbe og østers. Besøk oss for tips og inspirasjon til helgemiddagen. Meny, spiser du bedre, lever du bedre.
Okay, so President Trump now has announced a framework for a deal that will give us, he says, everything that we need in terms of our strategic goals and objectives in Greenland. And the details will be coming out over the next couple days. He has tasked J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Steve Witkoff, his top negotiator, to negotiate really the deal itself, the framework of the deal. And that apparently he says, by the way, they all have to answer to Trump, obviously, and with NATO and with the leading Europeans. And eventually he says we will come to an amicable agreement. He says he expects it to be done within a week. Both sides now have agreed to the general principles or the general contours of a framework. And so my question to you now is this. It ends the possibility of a trade war. That's now off the table. It has diffused this diplomatic crisis, at least for now. And it appears now that Greenland, in one way, shape, or another, is going to be a pivotal part of our national security architecture and of our defense, our military defense shield, the Golden Dome. Is this a victory for Trump? Are you happy with the framework? Are you happy with the way things have now turned out? Did Trump move the ball? Or did he essentially only get what the Europeans were offering, and the Danes in particular, the Danish government, from the beginning of this so-called crisis? So how do you feel about it now that this thing is all over? Has it been worth the energy, the time, the hysteria, the media attention that this issue has now garnered for the last at least 2 to 3 weeks? How do you feel now that we're at the end of this crisis and that the results appear to be a victory for the United States? Was it worth the fight? And how do you rate Trump's statesmanship and his leadership in his attempt now to get Greenland to be a key part of the Golden Dome? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. This President Trump shamed the Europeans. There's no question now. In European capitals, most European newspapers, Macron, they say, was humiliated. Starmer was humiliated. The German Chancellor, Merz, was humiliated. In Copenhagen, the Danish Prime Minister and the Danish Foreign Minister were clearly humiliated. Not just that they lost this battle with Trump. They clearly lost. But it's the truth bombs that Trump delivered. It was the unpleasant truths that he said to their faces about how much the United States has done for Europe, how much they've done for Greenland, how much we've done for Denmark, the lack of gratitude. And listen now to President Trump saying, look, you know, in his first term, he told the Danes, we need Greenland. And Denmark said, well, you don't have to have Greenland because we're going to beef up security and defense spending on Greenland. Listen now to Trump saying, you made promises to us 5-6 years ago, and you never delivered. You were playing us for fools, playing us for time all along. Roll cut to B, Mike.
In 2019, Denmark said that they would spend over $200 million to strengthen Greenland's defenses. But as you know, they spent less than 1% of that amount. 1%. There's no sign of Denmark there. And I say that with great respect for Denmark, whose people I love, whose leaders are very good. It's the United States alone that can protect this giant mass of land, this giant piece of ice, develop it and improve it and make it so that it's good for Europe and safe for Europe and good for us. And that's the reason I'm seeking immediate negotiations to once again discuss the acquisition of Greenland by the United States, just as we have acquired many other territories throughout our history, as many of the European nations have.
So what he's saying, look, he undressed the Danes in particular, saying, we saved Greenland from the Nazis. We had it for 10 years. We gave it back to you for free. You wouldn't have it if it wasn't for us. Then we told you we needed it in our first term. You said you were going to spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. You barely spent 1% of those, that $200 million that you guys said you were going to spend. Like, you're not serious. And you're jerking us around. And then, as he put it, the coup de grace, as he put it, and I think this is where he's on super solid ground. This talk in the media among Democrats, among even many Republicans, that Trump is out of control, Trump is a wild man, How dare Trump want to acquire this massive piece of territory? This is imperialism. The Europeans losing their minds. Like, hello? Have we forgotten American history? Thomas Jefferson, the Louisiana Purchase, was one of the biggest acquisitions in the history of the United States. How do you think we got Louisiana? How do you think we got so many of these southern states? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles of territory and land we bought from France. It was a commercial sale. Alaska with Secretary of State William Seward. This was in the Andrew Johnson administration after the assassination of Lincoln. We purchased Alaska from Russia. What's the problem? The Virgin Islands. That from Denmark, ironically. We purchased the Virgin Islands. So what I'm saying is, you know, much of our territory, by the way, even the U.S.-Mexican war, just, you know, if you want to get technical about it, yes, we defeated Mexico. Yes, we won California and Texas and New Mexico and Arizona and Utah. Yes, but people don't realize this. Mexico wanted a financial payment, money, to sign the treaty that gave us the entire Southwest. So you could also make the argument we purchased California and Texas and Arizona and Utah and, you know, and this and much of the Southwest. So what I'm saying is much of our country we bought. There's nothing un-American about what Trump is doing or unprecedented or ahistorical. In fact, au contraire, as the French would say, on the contrary. It's exactly how we've grown our country for hundreds and hundreds of years. What's the problem? Seriously, what's the problem? And this is why Trump's looking around the room like he's like, am I crazy? Or what is wrong with all these people? Everything, there's a sickness in our society. Everything is seen through the lens of 1938. Like, it doesn't matter what the issue is. It's always Munich. It's always the Sudetenland. And it's always Hitler. It's just like we can't think of any other paradigm. We can't look at history in any other way. Everything. Hitler. 1938. Appeasement. Trump's being appeased. Oh, my God. He's going to conquer the world. Relax. We're going to build shopping malls in Greenland, okay? They have no roads practically. We're going to build roads. We're going to develop all of their minerals and wealth. We're going to make Greenland one of the most prosperous pieces of territory, the biggest island in the world. It's going to be one of the most prosperous strategic locations. We're going to do to it what we've done to Hawaii and Puerto Rico and Alaska and the Virgin Islands. Believe me, they'll be the envy of the Arctic. Okay? Relax. Have a drink. Take it easy. Now, as the Europeans and many in the crowd were really nervously uncomfortable because Trump is, you know, it's one truth after another, after another, after another. So Trump then says, look, you're forcing me to say it because you're being so intransigent, so obstructionist. You won't budge. Somehow you're drawing this red line in the, on the ice in Greenland. All you Europeans that have done nothing for Greenland ever, you've ignored it and neglected it. But now that I want it and America needs it, suddenly now you're making your big stand against us. So he said, you know what? Okay. If we're friends, we can be honest with each other. Well, let me be honest with you. Roll cut 4, Mike.
We never asked for anything, and we never got anything. We probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force where we would be, frankly, unstoppable. But I won't do that. Okay? Now everyone's saying, oh, good. That's probably the biggest statement I made, because people thought I would use force. I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force.
So he's saying, look, I'm not going to, what's wrong with you? You think I'm just going to send in the military and we're going to annex this thing unilaterally? You think that's what we do in the United States of America? By the way, just as an aside, to show you the insane hysteria, okay, again, as I like to say, the fear-mongering, the panic porn, the insanity. You think Trump can just order an invasion of a country like this? Like just, yeah, let's go ahead, guys. We're going to invade a country that's done nothing to us. Literally nothing. I mean, Greenland's done nothing to us. Okay, Denmark has done. I mean, outside of, stabbing us in the back and being a bunch of ingrates. But I'm saying, in terms of actual physical damage to the United States, they've done nothing. So you think that's Trump's point. He's looking around saying, you think I'm going to order an invasion of a territory and a country that's done nothing to the United States? And what? Congress is going to allow it? The Supreme Court's going to allow it? You think the American people are going to allow it? You think Jeff Kuhner and the MAGA base are just going to green light a naked invasion of a country that's never attacked or hurt the United States? Of course not. The invasion would be illegal. Honestly, I don't even think the military would follow Trump's orders. It's like these idiots up in Canada now. Have you seen this? They're now writing op-ed pieces in the Globe and Mail, their big newspaper, that Canada has to get ready for an invasion by Trump. Like Trump is now going to send in the 101st Airborne and he's going to take over Ottawa. Like, what are you guys smoking up there? The United States is not going to invade Canada. We never will invade Canada. Why? Well, because you've done nothing to us. Why would we invade you? Are you people on drugs? So Congress would impeach the president. I think the military would disobey his orders, if you want to know the truth. Okay, if he just said, let's just invade Greenland. Take it over and invade Denmark. Go ahead. The Supreme Court would block him. I mean, there'd be massive anti-war opposition. His own base would turn on him. He'd be impeached within 24 hours. He knows that. The Europeans know that. The media, the idiots behind closed doors, they know that. They're just whipping up hatred and opposition and fear and hysteria. And so, but Trump is saying, what have we ever asked from you? Everything we've done for you, the Europeans, the Danes, the Greenlanders, we've done so much. Now we ask a little something for ourselves, which in the end is not just going to protect us, it's protecting you. It's protecting the world. And all of a sudden now we're at daggers drawn. It's a crisis. It's a trade war potentially. Suddenly now you guys want to end NATO? I'm the bad guy? I'm the boogeyman? So listen now to Trump saying, you want to know what I'm asking for? Here's what I'm asking for. Roll cut for a Mike.
All the United States is asking for is a place called Greenland, where we already had it as a trustee, but respectfully returned it back to Denmark not long ago after we defeated the Germans, the Japanese, the Italians, and others in World War II. We gave it back to them. So what we have gotten out of NATO is nothing except to protect Europe from the Soviet Union and now Russia. I mean, we've helped them for so many years. We've never gotten anything.
He's right. Look, it's not pleasant to say it. In a way, it's insulting to the Europeans to say it. But it's true. I'm telling you, he humiliated the Europeans. And you could see on Trump's face, he's like, you guys, you're being rude. You're being obstructionist. You're sabotaging me. You're undermining me. And you're making a big kerfuffle about nothing. And frankly, your behavior is borderline treasonous to us. It's a betrayal. We protected you. You didn't protect us. With all due respect, we didn't need you to stand up to the Soviet Union. You needed us. You would not have defeated Nazi Germany if it wasn't for us. Like, I'm sorry, but you keep pushing, and I'm going to have to give you the reply. So we got very little out of NATO. We got very little out of 6-7 decades of protecting Europe. The money came, it went one way. The troops went one way. The sacrifices went one way. It was all us to you. Very little you to us. And now I ask for one thing, and we're going to pay, and it's going to be fair, and it's going to be just, and it's going to be democratic. The Greenlanders are going to have to vote on this. Like, if they don't want it, they don't want it. That's okay, fine. But at least give us the opportunity to make an offer. And you won't even let us have an opportunity to make an offer? Like what? We can't even make a bid to buy it? Like, I'm sorry, but this is insulting. And so Trump let him have it. Now, he said, okay, you really want to push? Here's the truth. Here's the truth. Who's NATO? We're NATO. Who pays for NATO? We pay for NATO. So, in other words, you've been free riding off of our backs for 50 years. Roll cut 5, Mike.
We pay for NATO. And we paid for many years until I came along. We paid for, in my opinion, 100% of NATO because they weren't paying their bills. And all we're asking for is to get Greenland, including right title and ownership, because you need the ownership to defend it. You can't defend it on a lease. Number one, legally it's not defensible that way, totally. And number two, psychologically, who the hell wants to defend a license agreement or a lease, which is a large piece of ice in the middle of the ocean where if there is a war, much of the action will take place on that piece of ice. Think of it. Those missiles would be flying right over the center of that piece of ice.
In other words, and by the way, he's completely right. Who fights over a leasing agreement? Okay, who fights over a lease? If, tensions are escalating in the Arctic, the Russians and the Chinese are salivating at the prospect of eventually swallowing up not just Greenland, but the entire Arctic. And Trump is saying, look, it may come to a collision if we don't move proactively and counter and neuter Russia and China's growing expansion and influence in that area. You think we're going to fight for a leasing agreement? Because that's where the fighting is going to be. We're going to fight for something that's ours. That's what we're going to fight for. And I want you to listen now to this. He told them, we will always fight for you. We have fought for you in the past. We have bled for you in the past. We have died for you in the past. I'm telling you the truth. I don't think you're going to fight and die for us. Roll cut 7, Mike.
But now what I'm asking for is a piece of ice, cold and poorly located, that can play a vital role in world peace and world protection. It's a very small ask compared to what we have given them for many, many decades. But the problem with NATO is that we'll be there for them 100%. But I'm not sure that they'd be there for us if we gave them the call.
Yeah, of course. I'm sorry, but he's right. So, Trump said, look, we need to have sovereign bases on Greenland at a minimum. Now, it appears that the Europeans have caved. It appears that Gavin Newsom made an absolute fool of himself. It appears that the globalists lost a key battle because apparently now there's a framework. Okay, so let me ask you, Trump yesterday has said he's calling off all of the tariffs that were going to be imposed. He's now rescinding them because they have the framework of a deal over Greenland. According now to the White House, they released an official statement saying now that the United States is going to be acquiring many bases, military bases, across Greenland, especially in the northern part of the country, that those bases will be sovereign U.S. territory. They're not going to be leased. They're not going to be contingent upon a government in 50 years or 100 years renewing them. They will be considered sort of like Guantanamo Bay. It will be, those bases will be ours. And the land underneath them will be considered, and around them will be considered sovereign U.S. territory. Those bases will be there to be part of the Golden Dome, this national defense or intercontinental defense shield that Trump says he wants to construct by the end of his first term, that will neutralize any potential threat from the Russians or the Chinese in case they want to launch missiles, even nuclear missiles, at the continental United States. So my question to you, is this a good deal? Are you happy with what Trump has accomplished? And was it worth all of the economic and diplomatic fallout? 617-266-6868. Nick in Weymouth. Thanks for holding, Nick, and welcome.
Yeah, they will make these deals because they have to. Let's put it in perspective. Weymouth, Massachusetts' population is greater than the population of the mighty Finland. Not to denigrate them, but this is all about territory. It's about protection. As for Norway, Denmark, Sweden, there's more people in Florida than those three places combined. So once again, what do they produce is helping us. There isn't even a Saab car anymore. So it's all about protection. Do they want to go back to the Soviet Union? You want to join up with them? Is this why Trudeau, that imbecile, in Trump's first term, the first year, Chinese were doing cold weather training in various parts of Canada? Give me a break. They need to snap into reality. What will happen to them? You join the Chinese. You join the Russians. Your youth will be conscripted to fight against the United States. So let's face reality. What do you think, Jeff? Oh, by the way, one final slap to that heat pump Healy here. In her magic energy plan, oil is only mentioned in two particular places. We're not going to impose an oil ban for now. And oh, by the way, you need to get heat pumps. Thank you, Jeff. What do you think?
Well, Nick, look, I don't want to talk about Healy right now. I promise I will, because a lot needs to be said about her. But apparently now she came out, what was it, a day or two ago, and she was telling Trump to do his damn job, to get heating assistance to people in Massachusetts. It's cold. It's going to get apparently very cold this weekend with a lot of snow. People have no heat. And she's trying to blame Trump. Don't blame Trump. As I said on X, this is a classic bait and switch. Who was the one that declared war on fossil fuels? It was Healy. Who is the one that is against oil and natural gas? Healy. Who is the one that's trying to push everybody to convert to wind and solar power? Healy. Well, guess what? Solar panels don't work in the wintertime. Duh. I mean, anybody with half a brain could have figured that out. And so now we have an energy crisis in the middle of a freezing winter. And she's trying to pass the buck and blame Trump. Don't blame Trump, blame you. So, look, to me, what I find incredible, just to bring it back to Greenland, and this has been Trump's point the entire time, you can see it's like a train wreck. You can see there's a train on one side of the tracks and a train on the other side of the tracks, and they're heading towards each other, and you're looking at it and you're like, if we don't get a parallel track here, they're going to collide. Like, hello, if they don't hit the brakes or get a parallel track, there's going to be a massive collision. It's so obvious. The Russians and the Chinese are moving aggressively into Greenland and into the Arctic. In fact, China, as I said in my monologue, claims to be now an Arctic nation. Just look at a map. You couldn't be further from the Arctic than the Chinese. But now they're an Arctic power, according to them. They made an offer to buy a big harbor in Greenland, okay, right near Nuuk. They're now making offers. They want to buy mines. They want the rare earth minerals. Once the Chinese get their teeth into a country or a territory, they don't leave. And so Trump is saying, and you got the Russians aggressively now. They've got submarines. They've got ships. They're making claims on all the oil, all of it, at the bottom of the Arctic Ocean. So Trump is saying, look, you don't have to be a genius to figure this out. We wait another 5, 10, 15 years, the Arctic will be a Russian lake. The Arctic will be a Chinese lake together. And Greenland will be gone. They're going to snatch up Greenland. And the Danes can't defend them. The French can't defend them. The Dutch can't defend them. The Brits can't. I'm sorry. They don't have the desire, the willingness, or the ability to defend them. It's going to be us. So if we're going to defend them, we want it. Obviously. At least then there's something in it for us. And it looks like he got something approaching what he wanted. So I want to ask you, what do you make now of Trump's announcement yesterday? Are you happy with what he's achieved? Or do you think essentially he got what the Europeans offered him weeks ago? Okay. The text line, by the way, is on fire, 70470, 70470. This is what 781 wrote. And it sums up the feelings, I wouldn't say of a majority, but about a good 35, maybe 40% from what I can gather on my emails, Messenger, and obviously on the text line. Jeff, I've been listening to you now almost since you came to Boston, and I rarely disagree with you, but on Greenland, I do. I believe that President Trump made a very big mistake. He should never have started talking about possible military action. This now inflamed the Europeans, the Canadians, and even many of his allies and supporters here in the United States. In the end, the Danes, the Europeans, and the Greenlanders gave us whatever free rein we need to use Greenland to enhance our and maybe even Europe's security. That was never in doubt. So I think we're back where we started. And what was gained by Trump threatening military action? Nothing, except having more animosity directed against him from fellow Americans and our allies in Europe and in NATO. So 781 is saying he's not happy. 781 is saying that in the end, it was all sound and fury, ultimately signifying nothing. Now, President Trump is saying, no, we got quite a bit. We're going to be guaranteed total access to all the resources in Greenland, that the Europeans and the Greenlanders are going to agree to freeze out Russia and China completely, that we will have a right of first refusal on any potential investment or mining operation on that island. So Russia and China will never be able to get a foothold. And the key part, sovereignty. Full sovereignty, which we don't have now. Full sovereignty over every U.S. military base that we build. So this could be the keystone of the Golden Dome. It's as close to ownership of Greenland without actually owning Greenland. Is it enough for you? Did Trump deliver? Are you happy or are you not happy with the deal? Eddie in Maine. Thanks for holding, Eddie, and welcome.
Good morning, Kuhner man. How are you doing today?
Very good, Eddie. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing very good. Thank you for asking. I'm a Trump supporter. I back everything the man does. The guy's fighting the friggin' world. Everything's against him, and he always comes out on top. That's all I know. And I'd like to just say one thing. I wish we would put more emphasis in space. I wish we would have a base on the moon before his second term, I apologize. His second term comes to an end. Because by him doing that, Russia and China are going to have to spend all their resources trying to keep up with him on space. They ain't going to have all this extra money to fight wars and whatnot. And the rare earth that you find up there, I don't know what they're going to find, but I think nothing but good things will come out of it. Plus, one other thing. We've been fighting over the same planets since day one. And we gotta start looking forward to something else, because that old song, times are changing. You know what I mean? Everything that's we fight for on this earth, it gets outdated within a year or two now, especially with AI coming up. So we got to be going forward, not fighting backwards. That's just my opinion. And I was hoping that him and Elon Musk, when they teamed up, because I'm a child of the President John F. Kennedy era, we were going to conquer space before the deep space conquered him. I wish we would start going forward. And what do you think about that, Jeff?
Well, that's one of the reasons why Trump wants sovereignty, at least over all these bases. As he puts it, total military access, unlimited forever. And apparently now that's what Greenland and the Danes and the Europeans have agreed to. Because we do have a space base in Greenland. And Trump says he wants to build it up, and not just to explore space, which he's a big supporter of, but that we need it for the Golden Dome. We have to have space dominance so we can impose this missile defense shield. To remember now, the Russians are developing these hypersonic missiles that are the fastest missiles in the world. And we have to counter that with a missile defense shield. And so that's why Trump is saying Greenland is of immense strategic value and of immense strategic importance. Because of its location, it stands between us and Russia, and also because we have a very important space base there. So he wants to increase space surveillance, the ability to spy, and enhance our abilities here on Earth through space technology. But Eddie, one thing that I think people don't really quite properly remember is when we landed on the moon, okay, in the late 1960s, we planted the American flag on the moon. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the moon is ours. It's ours. It's like, how do I say this? It's like our Alaska, or soon to be our Greenland, but it just happens to be in space. And I don't know if there are rare earth minerals on the moon. I don't know. I don't know. But whatever the moon has, it's ours. And I believe that we should start eventually over time. We have to take care of our problems at home. We have an invasion to repel. We have cities that are dying. We have to rebuild our industry and our manufacturing. We have to rebuild our middle and working class. So we have major problems here at home. Please don't get me wrong. We have a deep state that we need to dismantle. We have a Democratic Party and a rising communist movement that needs to be crushed and defeated. So I'm not saying our plate isn't full. It is. But if you want to, be a Trumpian look down the road 25, 50, 75 years, in other words, let's get ready for the 21st century, going into the 22nd century. I think it's time, yes, I know they want to build a colony on Mars, and ultimately I'd love to see that. But I think we should also start developing the moon and tap into whatever resources the moon has. And then eventually I think we should colonize Mars, because I believe in the end, who wins the space race and who dominates space will dominate here on Earth. and I don't want it to be the Chinese, and I don't want it to be the Russians. Eddie, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. Bill in Sudbury. Thanks for holding, Bill, and welcome.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, Jeff. How are you today?
Good. How are you, Bill?
Here's the thing. If you were serious, if it was really about Arctic security, wouldn't you want to pull your NATO partners, your North NATO partners, closer to you, not push them away? By the way, we are already an Arctic nation. Alaska touches the Arctic. So we don't need Greenland for access to the Arctic.
No, I know, but Bill, have you listened to the show for the last hour and a half?
It's, to me, you're
no, you haven't.
Mischaracterizing
No, I know you haven't.
Yesterday.
See, that's your problem. You haven't. Like normal, you just call and it's a tape, and you just give me the tape because you heard it on MS Now. We need Greenland for the Golden Dome. Without Greenland, you cannot have an intercontinental Western Hemispheric missile defense shield, which we need to counter the rise of Russia and China in the Arctic. Greenland is the gateway to the Arctic. So, A, it counters Russia, it counters China, it helps create our security architecture, the Golden Dome, and it gives us a much stronger position and leverage in the Arctic. So, I don't know if you want to continue this debate or not, Bill. Mike, do we still have Bill in Sudbury, or is he gone? He's still there. Okay. Bill, are you there? Do we have you?
Yes, I am. Good morning, Jeff.
All right, Bill, good morning. So let me just put it to you this way. What we now have, it appears, is a framework of a deal in which the United States will have total unlimited access to all of the rare earth minerals, and there are trillions of dollars worth in Greenland, which we need for computer chips, for military, for electronics, for a 21st century economy. We will have unlimited total access to military bases all over Greenland with full sovereignty on every single base. This will be unlimited in infinitum. So we now have the rare earth minerals. We have the gateway to the Arctic. We have the keystone now for our national defense shield, our Golden Dome. We have kept the Russians and the Chinese out of Greenland. And we have a commitment now from NATO countries, including and especially Finland, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, that they will patrol the Arctic with us to eventually force the Russians and the Chinese out. It's a win for the United States. It's a win for NATO. It's a win for Europe. It's a win for the world. And it's clearly a blow against China and Russia. So why are you against it?
Because you're mischaracterizing what happened yesterday. I don't know whether you're deliberately omitting it or you're just deciding that you want to put this sort of spin on it. What happened yesterday is the EU canceled a giant trade deal. The bonds market shook. Everybody realized that if the 27 nations of Europe sell their U.S. treasuries, that would cripple our economy. And by the way, if they sold, other South America and Africa would probably have to follow. So what really happened is the bond market shook and he backed off. Yes, it's a big win. We got everything that we've had for the past 90 years. Hooray. But we also reduced our access to the Arctic because we have offended our North allies. And so now you like NATO now? Now you're like, great, now our NATO is our friends again? Since like yesterday you said we should disband NATO? Yeah, let's go into business with that erratic, crazy, on a whim sort of a person.
Again, I don't know what you're talking about, but Trump did get the NATO countries. I'm not a big fan of NATO. In fact, look, again, here's a fact. Tell me how you can dispute it. Since 1980, the United States has spent $22 trillion. That's with a T. More than every European country combined. Combined. That's Germany, that's France, that's Italy, that's the United Kingdom, that's all the Scandinavian countries, that's the Netherlands. I could go on and on. In defense of NATO in Europe. You're telling me this hasn't been a one-way relationship? You're telling me they haven't been riding our backs for the last 50 years? That they're a bunch of parasites and leeches? No? I mean, suddenly what? We're benefiting from that? That's your idea of a good deal? That's a Joe Biden idea of a good deal. That's not my idea or a normal person's idea of a good deal. But the fact of the matter is, the few crumbs that we get from them is at least now they are committed to patrolling the Arctic. Okay. So at least they're doing something for us. So I have no idea. You know, you can believe both things and they're both true. Now, as for your claim that we're just getting what we had for the last 90 years, I don't know where you're getting that. Because I'll tell you this, the Europeans are pissed. The Greenlanders are pissed. They're so pissed they don't want to join Trump's board in Gaza. Macron wanted to join the board in Gaza, the peace board. Now he doesn't want to join. Keir Starmer, he was going to join, doesn't want to join. It's news to the Europeans that they broke Trump's back. Every major European capital, every major European newspaper is saying this is a huge, humiliating defeat for the Europeans because they stood in opposition to Trump and he broke them. And he broke them because now Greenland is effectively ours. What's changed is that now we will have full sovereignty over every base that we have and that we build into the future, which means we don't have to account to the Greenlanders or to the Danes. Period. Full stop. It's like Guantanamo Bay. So the bases that we have in Greenland is the equivalent of bases we have here in the continental United States. They're ours. We own them 100%. And we have total unlimited access to every rare earth mineral in Greenland, which we did not have before. And we get the right of first refusal, which means the Chinese and the Russians can't buy a speck of lithium or any other rare earth mineral without our approval and say so. We never had that for 90 years. What planet are you living on? Now, by the way, that deal that they froze, it was just a trade deal that they froze. The trade deal they agreed to last year, it's back on. Within 24 hours, it's back on. So there is no trade war. So again, Bill, I know it sounds good on MS Now, but you know, after a while, when they tell you there was Russia collusion and they lied, and when they told you that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation and they lied, and when they told you that Joe Biden was fully competent and a physically, mentally energetic man fit to be president, and they lied. And when they told us that the Afghanistan withdrawal was absolute genius, as you told us, and they lied. And that Kamala Harris was a shoo-in to win the election, and they lied. There's got to be a certain point, Bill, where you say, you know, if they keep lying like this, maybe I should turn the dial. Final word to you, Bill.
See, you prove me every single time we talk. You prove me right. It's not about security. It's not about the economy. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about getting even. They were bad during the pandemic. They were bad during his first term. So now it's time to get even with them. By the way, the Don Road Doctrine is a giant retreat. Are you stupid? You think we don't operate in the Arctic right now? You think we're waiting for permission from somebody? How stupid are you? We operate in the Arctic right now.
Oh, my God. Listen, Bill, please, listen to me. You calling me stupid is like the pot calling the kettle black, okay? Since, you want to throw names, there's no bigger moron on this planet than you. I'm sorry, I'm just being honest. You don't even grasp fundamental ideas or principles we discuss on this show, if you want to know the truth. The Don Road Doctrine, oh my God, the Don Road Doctrine asserts American dominance over the entire Western Hemisphere. The Arctic is part of the Western Hemisphere. We've been in the Arctic going back 50, 60, 70 years. The Donroe Doctrine is adding Greenland into the security mix and saying now it's the position of the United States to eject Chinese and Russian influence out of our backyard, out of the entire Western Hemisphere. That's what's new about the Donroe Doctrine. Idiot. Seriously, idiot. Okay, that's number one. Number two, you're getting even. You're getting even. Are you so stupid? You don't understand that I'm talking about you? Getting even. You lied to this show over 10 years. You have been fed misinformation for 10 years. You have fed misinformation for 10 years. You continue to feed misinformation. So I'm trying to tell you, you were wrong. You were wrong on Russia collusion because you were lied to. You were wrong about the laptop because you were lied to. You were wrong about Joe Biden because you were lied to. You were wrong about Afghanistan because you were lied to. You were wrong about Kamala because you were lied to. I could go on. I'm just scratching the surface. So, hey, click, click. 2 + 2 = 4. Try it. They're lying to you again. And this is what I find incredible. Why can't you give him credit? Look at the Trump derangement syndrome. Look how mentally ill you are. This is a great victory for the United States. In fact, no one's denying it. No one at Davos is denying it. The Europeans aren't denying it. The Danes aren't denying it. The European media isn't denying it. They're all saying Trump and the EU went to battle and Trump won. And what did we get? We've effectively gotten Greenland. So why can't you celebrate for the United States? What's wrong with us now having Greenland as a fundamental part of our national security and our economic security? Like, I'm sorry, is he against Russia or is he a stooge of Russia? Because Putin is a miserable man today. Because he wanted Greenland and we took it. China, Xi, is miserable today because he wanted Greenland and we took it. So tell me, Bill, are you on the side of Putin? Are you on the side of Xi? Or are you on the side of America? Go, final word to you, Bill. I regret doing this, but what the hell? Go, Bill. Final word.
Greenland is 1,700 miles away from the United States. In Alaska, Russia is 59 miles away from the United States. To say that they are threatening us there is paranoid nuts. By the way, we already had all that stuff, all that first refusal, all that stuff. The only stuff that's new is the Space Force stuff. Everything else we already had.
No,
so
we
of
didn't.
course he's going to come out and
No,
say
we
it's a great
didn't.
victory.
Number one.
And
No, we didn't. You're lying. And not only that. So what now? The Russians aren't sending submarines into the Arctic? No? They're not sending naval ships into the Arctic? No? They don't claim the entire Arctic for themselves? No? Even parts that are part of America? Even the Arctic that is part of Canada? Really? Because this is news to the Americans and the Canadians because they took Russia to the International Criminal Court over that idea. That Putin is claiming the Arctic. So there's massive lawsuits going on. So I don't know what planet you're living on. What? The Russians now haven't made moves on Greenland? Really? So you mean they haven't tried to buy mines? They haven't been asking for harbors, ports? The Chinese, like they're doing all over the world, they're not asking for mines and ports because that's news as well. Because the Danes have said they're aggressively making moves on Greenland. The Greenlanders are saying they want to buy up our mines and they want to buy up our ports. So again, you can't give Trump credit where credit is due because mentally you're incapable of it. You see, you're the same people, and I know you're kind, Bill, because fundamentally you hate this country and you hate America. You're the kind of people that couldn't stand the fact that we acquired Alaska, that we acquired Hawaii, that we acquired Puerto Rico, that we acquired the Virgin Islands, that we acquired Guam, that we had the Louisiana Purchase. You see, to you, anything that enhances and expands and strengthens America, it's no good. It's no good, Bill. Because under you and under your guy, Joe Biden, China sent troops to Canada for military exercises, and your boy didn't care. They sent a spy balloon over our country, spying on our military bases, and your boy didn't care. The Chinese penetrated Congress, penetrated the government, stole our secrets, stole our intellectual property, infiltrated our top universities and research and development. And you and Joey said bravo. Bravo. Because, Bill, I told you this before, and I'm going to tell you again. You're a communist thug. You're a communist piece of you-know-what. Your allegiance is not to America. It is to the Democrat Communist Party. And their masters are China. And you know it, they know it, and everybody knows it. And today is a great victory for America, because this is a blow, a massive blow to the globalists and to the communist Chinese. And you can spin it any way you want, Bill. Trump won. The globalists lost. Thank you for that call. 617-266-6868. Ellie in Worcester. Thanks for holding, Ellie, and welcome.
Hey, how are you, buddy?
Very good. How are you, Ellie?
Good. I love you in a no-sex way.
Thank you. Thank you, Ellie.
Okay, I have to make a correction from my last call about Iceland, that they actually became independent in June of 1944, and Denmark never did anything for Iceland, just like they don't do nothing for Greenland. You know, they were extremely poor. And our, quote, European allies and Canada have mostly gone the way of the socialist, communist New World Order. And no, I don't think that any one of them would have our backs in the event of an attack on the U.S. I really don't. And Trump was very right when he said, I don't think that they would help us in case we ever went to war. And I don't think so either. It's like I think they would be very happy to see us fall. But it's like, and when the DSA, the Democrat Socialists of America, call us all Nazis, that's just a trigger word, because Hitler's form of government was National Socialist. See, so he was a socialist. So that was just a nickname, as was Mussolini. So that's, that Nazi thing. I'm so tired of hearing. I'm tired of hearing Democrat Republic. We're not. We're a constitutional republic. All they got to do is look up Article 4, Section 4 in the Constitution. You'll never see the word in the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, or the Bill of Rights. You'll never find the word democratic or democracy.
No, we're not. You're right, Ellie. We're not. And they keep insisting that we are, and we're not. We are a constitutional republic. There's no question. Now, we have elements of democracy. That's true, and that's grown over time, like a directly elected Senate, the universal franchise. So if you want to quibble over a definition, you can say democratic republic. But we're a republic, and a republic is very different than a democracy. And I'll give it to you, to everybody, literally in one sentence. All democracy means is one person, one vote. That's it. Demos. The rule of the people. Demos. Okay? Democracy. Okay? Rule of the people. So all that means is, basically, what was it? Who said it? Was it Madison? Anyway, one of our founding fathers said that essentially, if there are 3 wolves and 2 lambs or 2 sheep, the 3 wolves can vote to eat the 2 sheep. That's what democracy is. It's 50% plus one, and you do whatever you want. That's it. That's it. So we're not that. We're a republic. And thank the Lord we're a republic. Because what a republic means is that individuals are given fundamental, guaranteed rights that no government, state, local, or federal can trample or violate. It doesn't matter what the people rule or don't rule, how they vote or don't vote. We are guaranteed certain fundamental rights enshrined in the Constitution. That's what a republic is. That's what a republic means. So we're a republic, and thank the Lord we're a republic. Now, as for Greenland, you're completely right. Canada, we can never count on Canada, especially not with the Liberal Party in power. They don't spend any money on defense. They've been riding our back now for 50-some years. But Carney went to Beijing, the Prime Minister of Canada, went to Beijing and kissed the ring of Xi Jinping. He bent the knee. And he has now signed a trade deal with China that gives China full access to Canada. Canada now is essentially an economic colony of China. Carney is the puppet of Beijing. Not only that, he said, not Beijing, Carney said, that we are now welcoming a new world order dominated by Beijing. So he has stabbed us in the back in the most vile, despicable way. And you watch, he's going to put Chinese troops on Canadian soil. And I think eventually he's going to sign a security agreement with China. And then we're going to have to decide what to do. Because we cannot allow Canada to be part of the Chinese sphere of interest, sphere of influence, a military alliance right on our border. I mean, that is absolutely unacceptable. Unacceptable. And that's why I can play you the cut. Trump told Carney in his speech yesterday, he called him Mark. He said, Mark, if I were you, I'd be very careful what you're saying. Because Canada only lives because of the United States. So, no, we have traitors. Let's be very clear. Macron, who showed up at the Davos yesterday with those stupid...
Going to be defending Canada. Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not. I watched your Prime Minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. But they should be grateful to us. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements.
Yeah. And you got Macron, he thinks he's sexy. He's a clown. He goes up there. This is an indoor meeting. They're inside. And he's got these stupid ski sunglasses on. Like, what do you think, you're modeling? What do you think, you're some kind of a Hollywood star? And he's saying, we're united against the United States. They will never, ever have Greenland. Okay, you can text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. Let me ask all of you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Who got the better part of the Greenland deal? President Trump or Denmark? If you want, you can even throw in the Europeans. Denmark/EU. I mean, it's not technically on the question when you go and vote, but here, just, if I can just use my Mike and Sandy, if that's okay with both of you. My sort of authority, little as it is, as the host of the show. I mean, it's just my name on it, but let that go. Let's go Denmark/EU. Okay, so Denmark and all the Europeans. So, who got the better part of the Greenland deal that was announced yesterday, this framework? President Trump or Denmark/the European Union? A, Trump. B, Denmark/EU. You can vote, to me, it's Trump all the way. All the way. He took him to school, baby, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, we'll see. But anyway, to me, I think clearly a big victory for Trump, but that's my opinion. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. You can also vote via X, my handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn as in national ER. Pete in Worcester. Thanks for holding, Pete, and welcome.
I appreciate taking the call.
My pleasure, Pete.
Long time, many time, Quelden.
Welcome, Pete. Welcome.
I absolutely agree 100% that Trump basically got the best deal, and I'm amazed at the American people because they never cease to amaze me how stupid they can be. We are on a collision course with China, and people better wake up and realize this, that we are destined to be on a collision course, and it's coming, and it's going to come a lot quicker than people think. So kudos for Trump, and you know what? All you got to do is look at the previous administration with them giving up Bagram Air Base that was within 1 hour where they assembled nuclear weapons in China. That was the gold standard, and we gave it away. There's so many things going on.
Oh, no, Pete, you're not 100. You're 1,000% correct. And all I can do is add, to your point about Bagram, which, by the way, people like Bill in Sudbury, when they called, said this was a magnificent move on the part of Biden to just abandon Afghanistan and hand over Bagram, that Joe Biden was a genius. I swear to you. And Biden to this day says it was a master stroke. And so many moonbats and liberals say, oh, my God, what a move. What a move. And I'm like, these people are insane. But never mind the death, the destruction, what's happened to Afghanistan, how it's become a terrorist Al-Qaeda hotbed, the 13 U.S. Marines that were slaughtered. Let all that go. Let all that go, Pete. Okay? Within 2 hours after we were forced out of Afghanistan, the Taliban invited Chinese military senior officials onto Bagram and said, we left behind our finest military equipment, some of our finest attack helicopters. And they said, take it, you can reprint it, you can copy it, you can, in other words, take all the technology, disassemble it, so you guys can build the exact same type or quality of military weapons and hardware that the Americans have. And by the way, the Russians were invited in as well. But it was the Chinese who took the lead. And one of the first things the Taliban did was cut a deal with communist China for all the rare earth minerals that Afghanistan has. And as the Chinese said to them, hey, you want to enslave women, you want to stone women, you want to make sure none of them drive or have an education or whatever, you want to throw gays off of rooftops, we don't care. We're not interested in what's above the ground. All we want is what's underneath the ground. And basically the Afghanis, the Taliban said, take everything. We don't care for a price. Suck our land dry. But just let us have our Sharia law. Now, we gave all of that to communist China on a silver platter, thanks to Joe Biden and the Democrats. And to this day, they haven't condemned or criticized him for it. Pete, final word to you.
Briefly, I want to bring up one more point. It's very important. Peter Schweitzer was just on. I saw an article the other day, maybe 2 days ago, about the natural birthship, natural right being born in the United States. That the Chinese are basically having hundreds and thousands of people born in this country and then extracting them back to communist China. And at some point, maybe 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, this has been going on for a while. These people are going to be reintroduced to America. They're going to have voting rights, and they're going to be the enemy within. And
well, Pete, you're completely correct. Okay, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. President Trump yesterday stunned the world by announcing that they have reached a framework for a deal on Greenland. He says it gives the United States pretty much everything that he wanted. Strategically, almost every goal will be achieved. The trade war, or the prospective trade war, has now been called off. He has rescinded the tariffs that he wanted to impose. The European Union now is going to pull back on their tariffs that they were going to impose on us. So a trade war is now avoided. The diplomatic crisis, at least for now, has been defused. I can tell you in Europe and among European capitals, they see this as a humiliating defeat. They stood up to Trump. They tried to present a united front, and effectively Trump broke them. Now, what I want to ask all of you is that this is what many analysts, experts, and even some within the White House are saying. And I want to get your take, whether you agree or disagree. The question now is, will we get complete outright ownership of all of Greenland, which, as you know, is the largest island in the world. It's a massive Arctic territory. About 98% of Greenland is uninhabitable, or uninhabited, to be more accurate. It could be inhabitable, I don't know, but it's definitely uninhabited. There's 56 to 57,000 people who live on Greenland, very sparsely populated. Most live in the southern part of Greenland, especially in the capital, Nuuk. So, to take over that island completely, if it was to be a full-fledged U.S. territory, well, it would, it's expensive. I mean, you have to buy it. That's number one. And then number two, you have to develop, because it's now, it's like Alaska. It's all of it is ours. So what many experts are saying is that, in fact, Trump got the best possible deal. Maybe this is even what he truly wanted all along. You ask for the whole pie, but what you really want is, say, 3/5 of the pie. That's what you really want. You don't want the whole thing. Now, why? Why would Trump potentially not want the whole thing? Because Trump now has gotten everything that we want, but at low cost. If you take over all of Greenland, it's ours. You're responsible. Remember, they're used to welfare subsidies, lavish welfare subsidies from Denmark. So you have to pay for the subsidies. You have to pay for all the infrastructure. You have to pay for all the social programs. Obviously, you're going to buy them out, so you give them each whatever cash offer you agree to. You have to maintain the entire island. It's an expensive endeavor. It takes time. You want to build proper infrastructure, roads, bridges, whatever. You want to develop shopping malls. You want to develop, let's say Nuuk, a bigger airport and whatever. In other words, if you want to really develop Greenland, it's going to take a lot of money, a lot of investment capital, a lot of potentially even taxpayer money. But this way, what Trump says we're getting is unlimited military access to Greenland, unlimited economic access to Greenland. In other words, all the rare earth minerals, all the mining that we want, and the bases, not just that we have in the space base, but any other bases we want to build for the Golden Dome. The bases are sovereign U.S. territory. We're not leasing them. We don't have to negotiate with Greenland or Denmark or the Europeans in 20 years or 40 years or 50 years or 100 years or apparently even in 500 years, whether they want to renew, not renew. It's permanent, infinite, ours. Like it's as sovereign as a military base, I don't know, as Fort Bragg. It's as solid as any military base or installation within the United States. So we don't technically own the island. We just own all of our military and economic assets on the island. So the argument is we get what we need from Greenland, the strategic advantage that we need from Greenland, but at almost a bargain basement price because it's at such low cost. Because we haven't bought it, we don't own the whole thing, and we don't have to be responsible for the social welfare of its people. So let me ask all of you, put this idea on the table, this log on the fire, as I like to say. Is this even better than out and out ownership of Greenland? 617-266-6868. Rob in Maine. Thanks for holding, Rob, and welcome.
You and your family and your great staff. Listen, he won, as you say, no doubt about it, and he won at little price. It's just part of the artsy-fartsy deal that he runs on some of these people he deals with. And that's the first...
Rob, are you on a speakerphone or a headset by any chance? Because we can barely hear you.
Jeff? Hello, Jeff. Is it
Rob, it's like night and day. Rob, please do me a favor. Can you start your point from the beginning? Because the first 10, 15 seconds, all we heard was shh, like, I don't know, like background noise. Please, go ahead, Rob.
About that. Yeah, okay. Anyway, I just wanted to thank you and your family and your team. But I did want to say that President Trump got another terrific deal. Another part of his artsy-fartsy deal approach to people. And he really, really, really won again. And I think that really gets the wokesters PO'd more than just about anything else. But there is one other thing that he showed with this deal, and that is by challenging his alleged best allies in the world, actually threatening to take some land away from him, they backed down, and he got what he wanted. And what does that show more than anything else? And this really bugs the wokesters. It shows that he is really the MAGA president, that he does things for our country and he takes risks for our country. And that, I think, bothers them more than anything else. And that's one of my solutions to what causes TDS. Just thought I'd mention that. You notice they never mention Trump derangement syndrome. They may bap somebody in the head if they have a hat on and all, but basically they don't talk about about Trump's MAGA stuff very much. But I think underneath it all, they hate America, and MAGA it captures the idiom, as it were, for hate for America. Thanks for all you do, Jeff.
Rob, you hit the nail on the head. Absolutely, you hit the nail right on the head. Look, make America great again. It's not just a cheap slogan. And the purchase of Greenland, you can, hold me to this, or whatever, the framework that they've now laid out, is going to go down in the history books as the Louisiana purchase, the purchase of Alaska, James K. Polk, who got Texas and Oregon into the Union. I think Trump is now going to go down as clearly like Theodore Roosevelt, as one of the greatest nationalist presidents we've ever had. This is a massive victory, not just for our economic security, but for our national and even international security. This now guarantees the Golden Dome. This now guarantees that we will be the dominant power in the Arctic. And this has now given Russia and China one of the biggest blows of the last 20 to 25 years. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, we are now on the cusp of a new historical era. Greenland now, this could be a landmark deal, one for the history books. Even the Europeans are now admitting that if this framework deal is completed, and it looks like it will be in about a week, then it will lead to massive historic changes in the relationship of Greenland with the United States. And it will now be the foundation piece of not just Arctic security, which is massive for our time, but for the Golden Dome. And we will now have an impenetrable maybe the most impressive intercontinental defense shield ever created. And with Greenland now, because we're going to own all of the bases, the land underneath it, we will have full sovereignty on the bases that we'll rely on for this Golden Dome missile defense shield. Essentially now the Monroe Doctrine will be achieved. China kicked out of the Panama Canal. Check. China's influence in Venezuela now expelled, and Russia's. Check. And the centerpiece, the crown jewel, Greenland now as the keystone of our security architecture to defend our continent, our missile defense shield, and to guarantee our dominance of the Arctic and the dominance of the entire Western Hemisphere. Donald Trump now will go down in history alongside Thomas Jefferson, President Polk, who got us at Oregon and Texas, obviously William Seward, who wasn't president, Secretary of State, but he was the man that got us Alaska, and by the way, to give him his due, had the vision. He wanted Greenland. He wanted Greenland. He said, guys, we got to go for both. And because of the Reconstruction politics at the time, he served in the Johnson administration, who took over. He was Lincoln's vice president, who was a Southerner. He was a Southern moderate, a Southern Unionist, but he wanted a much more lenient peace on the South than most Republicans did. And so when he took over from Lincoln after Lincoln's assassination, he was hated, reviled by many in the North and by many Republicans. In fact, they impeached Johnson, and they came within one vote of removing him. Not just impeaching him, but getting the 2/3 majority to remove him. So there was so much opposition to Johnson and his administration that they kind of lumped William Seward in with Johnson, which wasn't fair. And that cost us acquiring Greenland. We ended up getting Alaska, thank the Lord. But Seward said, get both. And it was Seward that said, really, Alaska is going to be our security centerpiece in the Pacific. Greenland will be the exact same in the North Atlantic. So we could do it on both sides. We are now on the cusp of achieving Seward's dream. 617-266-6868. And it seems at very low cost, because the idiot Europeans are insisting that the bulk of the territory of Greenland still remain within Danish hands. So we get the minerals, we get the rare earth, we get the sovereign security that we need, the military bases for our Golden Dome and our defense shield, and access to the Arctic. And basically, they still get to cut the checks and subsidize the native Greenlanders. So it's almost like Trump got it, and now we got it for a steal. George in Malden. Thanks for holding, George, and welcome.
Jeff, I'd like to take a different tact on this thing.
Yes.
Greenland is ours now. But there's another thing that I kind of think will happen. There's going to be a reorganization of the North American. I think some of the Canadian provinces are going to leave Canada and join us at some point. They were discussed when Trudeau was around for a long time. You know this better than I probably. But I think there's going to be a reorganization. What do you think?
Well, George, I would have said no 5-10 years ago. I just didn't see the kind of regionalist sentiment, separatist sentiment that would say Canada's going to break up. However, after what Justin Trudeau has done, and especially now Carney, I think Carney now has made the biggest miscalculation of any prime minister in Canadian history. And to the whole audience out there, most Americans don't know this. This is all operating under the radar. But under Carney, Canada now, and by the way, against the will of most Canadians, I just want everybody to know this. Most Canadians are very pro-American. Most Canadians love America, cherish America. So this is happening at the leadership elite level. Okay, in many ways, like in Europe. You know, you go to Britain, I'm telling you, ordinary British citizens love Americans. It's the leadership. It's Keir Starmer. It's the woke elites. Basically, the political and media class. They're the ones that despise us, okay? But anyway, let that go. What Carney is now doing is, and he is a globalist, and he is a puppet of Beijing. They own him. They own him lock, stock, and barrel. Is he is now shifting Canada slowly but surely towards China's orbit and under China's sphere of influence. What he did in Beijing just last week before he went to Davos is to me unforgivable. The way he publicly sucked up to Xi Jinping, prostrated himself. You have to see the video. He bowed. He bowed, and I don't know if he kissed his hand or he kissed his ring. It was disgusting. But then he signs this trade deal that no person in their right mind would sign with China. They gave away the store. China, you want to talk about full access to Canada. China has full access to Canada. They're going to start sending troops into Canada for military exercises. I think they're eventually going to forge a military alliance. I think that's the next step. I think Canada now wants China to dominate the Arctic. And they're going to go in through Canada because China wants the Arctic. They're thirsting for the Arctic. And of course, they're thirsting for Canada. They want Canada's natural resources. So Carney now is putting Canada on the path towards an out-and-out alliance with China. Now, I'm telling you, it's a threat to us. It's a clear threat to us. Okay? And it's a fundamental betrayal of everything we've done for Canada. And I'm speaking now as a former Canadian. But Alberta is not going to go along with this. Saskatchewan is not going to go along with this. Manitoba, I believe even British Columbia, they are not going to accept this. They're not. And I think you're going to see them eventually break away. And I look at these Western provinces, and I said it for many years. They are Americans in everything but name. They are extremely pro-American. They have an American lifestyle. Their culture is almost identical to that of ours. They're almost like a distinct region of America, sort of like the South or the Midwest. Okay? Yeah, a little different. Not, the way they talk and they finish their sentences with A and, they really love winter sports and maple syrup and, they have certain things that are distinct to that region, but fundamentally, they're Americans. When they break away, and I think now it's inevitable, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when, then French-speaking Quebec is going to say, hey, look, if Canada's breaking up, we want to go our own way as well. They want to create an independent French-speaking state. Well, then you've got the Maritimes and you've got Ontario. Now, maybe they can hang on. Maybe they won't. I don't know. I think maybe Ontario would want to stay Canadian as, an independent country called Canada. The Maritimes economically be very hard. They would eventually maybe want to join us. So what I'm saying is, and Trump understands this, that we're now looking potentially at grabbing much more territory or acquiring or absorbing much more territory. If we get the Western provinces, which is full of oil and full of wheat and full of resources with a highly educated population, on top of the Maritimes, which also is very rich in minerals, especially in fishing, fisheries, and you throw in Greenland into the mix, we're going to be the greatest unrivaled superpower the world's ever seen. This is going to change the whole ballgame geopolitically vis-a-vis the rise of China. So, ironically, Carney, who thinks he's stabbing us in the back because he hates us, who thinks now he's outwitting us and outmaneuvering us by maneuvering towards China, I think he's going to set off a chain of events that's going to blow up in his face. It's going to blow up Canada, And I think ultimately it's going to blow up China. We must not and we will not ever accept China penetrating our sphere of influence and having troops in Canada right on our border. We will never accept it. We can never accept it. And to everyone out there, not that I'm a defender of Vladimir Putin, quite the opposite. But now you know how the Russians feel about NATO and NATO troops in Ukraine. Canada, for us, is a core national security interest, period. Like Greenland, period. That's what it is for Russia. And that's what I've been trying to tell people. Say you get rid of Putin. Say you eliminate Putin. There's no Russian leader that will accept an independent Ukraine with NATO troops. No one. Not the opposition, not the democratic opposition, not the communist opposition, not the other nationalists that are waiting in the wings. No political party, no major political figure in Russia will ever accept it because it's a core national interest. That's why the Russians are, that's why, Trump keeps banging his head against the wall. And I understand. He's like, what is wrong with Putin? Why won't this guy cut a deal? And it's like, you don't understand. It would be akin to us fighting a war, a proxy war with China over Canada, and us having to accept Chinese troops on our border. We would say never. Forget it. No, the answer is no. It's a red line. No. So we fight and we keep fighting and we keep fighting until you give up on that, on that issue, on that point. So that's why I've been saying for a long time, take the NATO security guarantee off the table. Ukraine can be part of the West. It can join the EU. Look, Switzerland is neutral. Austria is neutral. Finland and Sweden were neutral until just a couple of years ago. What's wrong with that? It's not the end of the world. They can culturally with the West, economically with the West, politically with the West. Just, you have to understand, for Russia, it's a great power. They cannot have NATO missiles that can strike Moscow or St. Petersburg within 7 to 8 minutes. Just like we can't have Chinese troops or, God forbid, Chinese missiles in Canada that could hit New York City and Washington, D.C. in 5 minutes. That's it. It's over. They would have a decisive military advantage. So I kind of got a little astray there. But just to go back to your point, George, I completely agree with you. And look, going back to Seward, since we're all in an historical mood today, Seward, who got us Alaska, predicted, he said it may take 100, 150, even 200 years. But he famously said, it is America's manifest destiny to eventually control and dominate most, if not all, of North America. That one day, he said, most of Canada and Greenland will be ours. That by nature, by destiny, by just our position here in the United States of America, that ultimately we are a North American power, we are a North American people, and that North America will be fully ours one day. Greenland is the first step. If Canada breaks up, and I believe you're right, they will, much of Canada will be ours. And then our manifest destiny will have finally been fulfilled and achieved. George, am I wrong?
You're right, because I see it. I really see it. And a lot of people I've talked to up there. But I'd like to add one more thing, if I may, before I close. I think you should have another day when you can talk about the Schweitzer book. That's very important.
George, we've reached out to Schweitzer. He's going to come on. We're going to interview him, discuss the book, and then, of course, I'll spend more time myself talking about the book. It's called Invisible Coup. I think basically his thesis in one sentence is that foreign powers, China number one, but other powers, are using migration as a weapon against the United States. That we don't understand. It's not just illegals pouring in across our border, bad as that is. It's that it's being deliberately orchestrated and masterminded by great enemies, foreign powers of the enemies of the United States, to destroy us from within. And he's got all the receipts, all the facts, all the evidence to prove it. And so it's a wake-up call. He's saying you have to wake up before it's too late. And that China, as the number one globalist power, is the most responsible. There are others, but that China is playing the leading role. So it's a vital book, an incredibly important book, and you better believe it, George. I'm going to dedicate a show to it, and I will have Schweitzer on. George, thank you so much for that call. Tony in Berkeley, thanks for holding, Tony, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi, Tony.
You touched on the point that I was thinking about, but the first thing I want to say is that when these other people in other countries that were supposed to be on our side split like this, they just laugh. It just makes us look weaker to Russia and China, and it kind of validates them to try to take over. If Europeans had the same mindset we did about Greenland, there wouldn't be Russia and Ukraine right now. You have to take these steps ahead of time. And when Trump got up there, I was late for work just listening because I was trying to tap into what he was saying. And basically, he's telling these people, you know, there's no party without the United States. We're fueling you, and we're doing all this for you. And now, if you don't fall in line with us, we're moving forward one way or the other. And I don't think they really believe that we have the stomach to do that. And this fills that vacuum of world leadership that America should be in, because we're mostly good and we are looking out mostly for, you know, people's well-being as a society.
Well, Tony, you're absolutely correct. And the part that struck me the most, I played the clips earlier in the show, but, you know, look, I love radio. I think it's the greatest medium ever invented. I do. But one of the drawbacks, one of the negative aspects of radio, or the weak spots of radio, is at times you don't see. The visual is important. So you hear the cut, and it's visceral. You hear it in your radio or wherever you're listening, but sometimes you don't see the face, right? And so it's not just the lines that Trump delivered, it's the look on his face. And so when he spoke, you could see he was almost pained. Like this look of pain on his face. Hurt. He was hurt. Like emotionally hurt. As an American, when he was talking about not just how we protected Greenland after Denmark fell to the Nazis and made sure the Nazis never took control of Greenland, and how we protected it even after World War II and then gave it back to Denmark basically free of charge, but how much we sacrificed to save Europe. As he said, you'd all be speaking German if it wasn't for us. How much we sacrificed to protect Europe during the Cold War. How much we sacrificed to pay for Europe's security after the Cold War. The last 30, 35 years. And then he kind of looks around and he says, what are we asking for now? We're asking for, he called it a piece of ice. A massive land, very important strategically, but it's a piece of ice. And as he put it, a piece of ice that you guys never cared about. You don't develop it. You don't cherish it. You don't want anything to do with it. You undervalue it. You've neglected it. In fact, Denmark has already agreed in principle to let Greenland go. That Greenland should have a vote of independence, and it's 90% are going to vote to secede from Denmark. So it's a piece of real estate you're basically already signing away. And all we want, not to take it over militarily, we're not invading, God forbid, we'd never do that. We just want a commercial sale. We want to give them the option for us to buy them. Now, Trump even said, if the Greenlanders don't want our offer, that's fine. That's fine, okay. But at least give us the option, the opportunity to put an offer on the table. Like, what's so wrong with that? Why can't we purchase Greenland? They become independent, and then we say, okay, whatever, $500,000 per resident, whatever, here's what we're going to do for you. Would you guys want to be part of the United States? And suddenly now you want to blow up the NATO alliance? Suddenly now we're not friends? Suddenly now I'm the aggressor? I'm a boogeyman? I'm a monster? And that's when he said, look, you want to know the truth? I'll tell you the truth. Any of you were attacked, we would defend you. But if we were attacked, you wouldn't defend us. So it's a one-way relationship. Okay, this is a text message I got from my wonderful sister Jennifer out in Tucson, Arizona. First, Jeff, it looks like Bill from Sudbury has switched to mushrooms. Someone should tell him to slow down on those psychedelics. So she wanted to get Bill and Sudbury off her chest. But here is what she wrote about Trump. She said, Jeff, yesterday I saw my president reinvent diplomacy. Trump is rewriting the art of diplomacy and gave a master class on it in Davos. He continues to amaze me. MAGA, make America great again. And while the president is making America and the world safer, the Democrats have loser Gavin Newsom trying to undermine America's security to only be put in the back of a room with no chair. Did you see that, by the way, during Trump's speech? There was Newsom way in the back standing. He didn't even have a chair. Someone forgot to tell Newsom that the communist delegation was in another building. Back in the USA, the new mayor of New York City, Jeff, I'm not joking, was singing communist Sesame Street songs. God help us if these losers win in the next elections. I told you don't get more MAGA than my sister. I mean, die hard MAGA. Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Thanks for taking the call, Jeff.
My pleasure, Dan.
You know, I have to say that, you know, when you say make America, and Trump has said make America great again, I didn't understand. I felt that he meant, you know, tariffs and, you know, kind of making our country great. And now I see his master plan, and I think everyone who was much like myself, not in the inner circle, not knowing really his main idea of where he wants to go, now I can clearly see, and I think the listeners and I think the people in the country, when you say make America great in the world, not just within our own boundaries, to create peace, to create stability, to create commerce. We had terrible years. We had Phyllis Diller and Mr. Magoo. And quite honestly, I think Russia and China are kicking themselves in the butt because they didn't act more aggressively in the world while we were asleep at the switch. And quite honestly, you can see a vast difference between that administration and the current one, because this guy is so far ahead of everyone in the world. And it's really bringing out the fact of, you know, he's flushed out a lot of things, that how liberal Europe is, how weak that they've become because of the liberalism and the non-winning attitude. And just, how can I say, you know, second place is good enough. Well, you know something? We've got a real champion, and I mean a real champion. This guy's got the canuchas, and I can tell you right now, nobody dares to mess with him, because he doesn't really threaten. He just says, look, we could do this, we could do that. And, you know, he gets people listening and up on edge, and then he says, look, we don't really want to do that. We'd rather do this. And he brings them to the table by basically a little bit of provocation, but it brings them all to the table where he can make sense to them. And you can see our position in the world just becoming stronger. And now I really understand what being MAGA is. It's just not making us as one nation strong. It's our strength amongst the world in creating us as the number one power and not allowing China or any of these other pseudo countries that would, basically enslave and make us all communists. He stopped that. I don't know about you, Jeff, but I have a new feeling of strength. I go to sleep at night knowing that we're number one. I don't have the feelings like I had with Biden, Kamala, that something drastic and world war and fires and all these things that I'm going to bed with thinking about. I don't have those thoughts anymore. I have peace and comfort and strength that I go to bed with now. And I'm going to tell you right now, he's opened up my eyes. I understand what it really means to be MAGA because he's expanded my thought process on the whole thing. And as far as
Dan, look, I got to tell you, it's funny you should say that because I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me, but there's a new spring in my step this morning, right? And I'm like, why? I mean, I'm happy. I love my job. I love my wife. I love my kids. Don't get me wrong. I'm usually in a very good mood, but there's something a little extra today. And I'm like, why? And I'm like, well, because we're on the move again. Like, this was just such a brilliant coup by President Trump. And Dan, the heart of it is this. It's the Don Roe doctrine, which is we are going to kick China and any other foreign power out of our hemisphere. Out. Just out. Panama Canal, China doesn't own it. Out. Venezuela and Russia, you're not controlling Venezuela anymore. Out. And now Greenland is the big one. And so he's creating a Western hemisphere. It's like the Monroe Doctrine, but now it's going to be dominated by America, impregnable to foreign powers and foreign influence. And this is going to be our foundation, our strength. We're self-sufficient. 617-266-6868 is the number. Terry in Florida. Thanks for holding, Terry, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Very, very good, Terry. I'm very happy about what happened yesterday.
That's main reason I called you. I did 26 years in the military total. I went in the Marine Corps from 87 to 91, and the rest I was in the National Guard. But after September 11th, I went on active duty for the remainder of the time. I actually called my son. He's in the Guard. I told him, let me know how Greenland is when you go there.
God bless you, Terry. Honestly, God bless you and your son. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your service. So as a military man and obviously a patriot, what do you make of this move by Trump? Do you want us to have Greenland? Should we have Greenland? Are you happy now that maybe not going to get all of Greenland, but we're going to get enough key bases that'll be ours, truly ours, for a golden dome and to ensure our dominance of the Arctic? What say you, Terry?
Well, you mentioned Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and I was there in 2003. I worked in the detention camps as an MP. And let me tell you, the bases are huge. And like you had mentioned, like have malls. They had all that there in Guantanamo Bay. That families could go down there. It's a huge base. And there's no way to me, Cuba was like an American country in a sense. You know what I mean? Because there's no way anybody would attack Cuba with us being there without us doing anything. I've been to Kuwait, Qatar, I've been to Kyrgyzstan, Afghanistan 3 times. And when there's a military base, it's almost like no one's going to mess with you when we are there. The bases are not small. They are huge and they're very well protected. You know what I mean? Guantanamo Bay is basically a Navy base, but I was in the Army at that time. I went in the Marine Corps, then I went in the Army as an MP, and I got sent down to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And it's huge base, huge.
Terry, do you think getting these key bases now with full sovereignty for part of our missile defense shield, our Golden Dome, is it worth it? Do you think it strengthens the United States? Or do you think it's a diversion that we don't need? What's your feeling as a military man?
Without a doubt, it strengthens us. I mean, how can it not? You know, I guess if the people that aren't in the military may not be able to see the strategic value of something, but to have a base there and to have like a cutoff point, or like you said, the Golden Dome, that will be possible, or would not be possible unless we had interest in a certain country, which now we do, like throughout the Atlantic. We have, we have a base there, so it's, and we can only go further from there. We can't go back. Once we have our base, we pretty much not own the country, if you know what I mean, but we're there.
Oh, no, you're dead on. Look, no, Terry, you put your finger right on it. Look, Greenland now is essentially a protectorate of the United States. It's essentially, it's ours. Now, whether we technically own the whole thing or not, it really doesn't matter. And that, I think that's the point. And that cements our presence in the North Atlantic. That's the gateway to the Arctic. That cements our dominance of the Arctic. And this is why Trump just kept banging his head against the wall. Like, what is wrong with all of you? This now gives us the better ability to protect Europe, to protect NATO from Russia and China. Hell, as he put it, to protect the world. A stronger America is a stronger NATO. A stronger NATO ultimately could mean a stronger world if we're united. So, Terry, I'm with you. Look, I think this is a big victory. As I've said before, I don't want to be a broken record, but he's going to go down in history now the way William McKinley did, the way Theodore Roosevelt did, the way Polk did, Seward, Thomas Jefferson. This is now it's a new era. We are now talking about America as a continental superpower. And the Western Hemisphere is truly now, we have fulfilled what James Monroe and John Quincy Adams wanted. The United States now has not just a sphere of influence in the Western Hemisphere. We are now having a sphere of dominance. And it's happened, thank you, Jesus, at just the right moment. With the rise of China and with an expansionist Russia. And the Europeans now, all they can do is look, and, they can seethe and they can be angry. But in the end, it's all jealousy and envy. And they frankly should be ashamed of themselves. They should have been encouraging us to make a deal with Greenland. They should have been with us instead of against us. Terry, thank you so much for that call. Let me throw this log on the fire as well. I want to ask all of you. A couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Politically, here at home, how do you think this is going to play? Is this a victory for Trump politically? Is it going to give him, in your view, a boost in the polls? Is it now going to make him even more popular, more formidable? Is this going to help him in the midterm elections? Or do you think politically it's going to be used against him? Is it going to hurt him? Already I'm getting some of the listeners texting saying, Jeff, we didn't elect him to do this. We want him to focus at home, not focus on this board of peace in Gaza, as he signed today, or now making Greenland part of the Golden Dome missile defense shield system. That this is, we're not interested in 10, 15, 20 years down the road. We're interested in today. We're interested in now. We're interested in inflation and affordability and the cost of energy and deporting illegal aliens and crime. That this is what we wanted Trump to focus on 1,000%. So I'm just curious, are you happy or not happy that Trump now looks like Greenland is going to be the crown jewel of his Don Road doctrine. 617-266-6868 is the number. Victor in Georgetown. Thanks for holding, Victor, and welcome.
Kuhner, man, Trump is a genius. And I've done a closing with President Trump at the Trump Towers, and it was a great closing because we were both on the same side of the transaction, if you will. And President Trump can look at a vacant piece of land, and he sees a skyscraper. Okay, his vision is amazing. Now, I'm going to tell you something that most people probably won't believe. The reason that we're getting this option to buy Greenland is because in the event that the Communist Democrat Party takes power, they're going to put Puerto Rico in as a state. D.C. cannot become a state because in the Constitution, it's a non-state capital. It's not going to be a state. But we're going to be able to offset that, Jeff, with Greenland. We will obtain Greenland and convert that to offset the communist Democrats who want to turn America into a Chinese hellhole. And until the Americans, people listening, and their relatives understand that the Democrat Party is not the Democrat Party we grew up with, they're communist. And they want to do away with the Constitution and put us, in a spot where we have no choice but to follow, just like they follow as slaves over in China. And I am so impressed that they say the big words in the contract give you the power, and the little words take the power away. When President Trump puts this contract together with NATO for Greenland, it's going to have a proviso in there where we're able to obtain it and to accomplish our balance, if you will, against these communist Democrats. What say you?
Victor, I think you hit the nail right on the head. And the only thing I can do is add, and this is what I would add. I think now with us cementing this deal on Greenland, I think there's no question that Beijing has suffered a massive blow to their ambitions in the Arctic, in Greenland, in the North Atlantic. And the only conclusion I can reach is this. The Bills in Sudbury and the Chris's in Gloucester and all these Democrats that are dead set against United States now having Greenland in our strategic orbit. 617-266-6868. Mary in Boston. Thanks for holding, Mary, and welcome.
Oh, hi, Jeff. What a pleasure. A first-time caller, but I'm a daily listener.
Welcome. Welcome, Mary. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I just have a few things to say that I've thought for over a long period of time that I just want to first reassure those that I think are worried about Trump putting America first and not focusing on the United States. There's no future without what he's doing for our country by creating the safety and protection. He's laying the groundwork and the foundation for our security for a long, long period of time. There's no future. People saying, 20 years from now, he's laying plans and he's making plans now for our protection. He may not always come across pleasantly, but I don't care. He has my 100% support, always steps ahead to secure the future of our country. I trust the man 1,000% and pray for his safety every day.
Mary, are you happy about how he's handled Greenland and the end result?
I am. I am. I think the Europeans need to quit the temper tantrum and get on board and support us as we've always supported them since, the end of the war and before that. I am happy. I think that without the kind of gusto and bravado that he is, and sometimes, could be a little blistering for those who are offended easily. And, it takes someone of his stature and character and personality to get this done. This couldn't be done by someone else who is weak and who capitulates to to other countries and to people in this country, and he's afraid of that are afraid of offending people. He's not afraid of that. He puts our country first. I just think we're blessed to have him.
You know, Mary, when you made that last point, I'm thinking, well, let's say Nikki Haley, could she have done it? No. Jeb Bush, could he have done it? No. Rand Paul, could he? I don't think he even wanted to do it, but anyway, could he do it? No. Could Ted Cruz have done it? No. Could George W. Bush have done it? No. So you're right. When I'm thinking of, could Mitt Romney have done it? No. So when I think about either former presidents or, serious presidential contenders or former serious presidential contenders, Mary, you're completely right. None of them could have done it on the Republican side. Democrats, forget it. I mean, they wouldn't even think of it. But you're right. Only Trump could have pulled it off. And, he asked for the moon, but he settled for, sovereign military bases and unlimited access to all of the natural resources that Greenland has forever. So basically, we took Greenland almost at a bargain. Because now Denmark is still going to have to pay all these Greenlanders their social welfare payments every month. So we're not even on the hook for that. So in a sense, Trump got us a very strategic piece of real estate for a song, for practically nothing. Mary, am I wrong?
No, you're 100%. I agree with everything you said, and you're 100% right. And it just shows the level of genius that we're dealing with. You may not like him, you may not like his personality, but he is the president of this whole country, whether you like him or not, and he's going to protect people, like he said, whether you like it or not.
Mary, thank you so much for that call. Please don't be a stranger. Call again, Mary. Ray in Florida. Thanks for holding, Ray, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, listen, I get through a couple of times over the last couple of years. You owe me a hot dog for a 2-to-1 steak bet for a hot dog. I won that one. And I won a steak over Hillary. Them never, ever doing anything to her. So I just wanted to remind you who I am.
So I owe you a lot of meals, Ray. Is that what you're telling me?
That's correct, because sometimes they don't like the way I say it, but I give it straight, and unfortunately, I've been right too many times.
All right, Ray, listen, we've got 2 minutes. I don't want to rush you, but we've got 2 minutes. Give it to us straight. Go, Ray.
70% of the people in this country have no clue what's going on in the world, and all they care about is how much a Wendy's hamburger costs. And if they bring that down to $1, the Democrats would say, oh, that's okay, though, because it causes cancer, so we don't want you to eat that anyway. And unless something drastic changes, and I hope I'm wrong on this one, they're going to get croaked in the midterms.
Okay, now, Ray, who's going to get destroyed in the midterms? The Republicans or Democrats?
The Republicans.
Why?
Listen to me. They don't care. All this stuff on this global stuff, protect the world, you got Greenland, they don't care. Between the Trump derangement syndrome and the stuff that they're fed every day, most people in this country still watch NBC, ABC, and CNN. I don't care what the polls say. Interesting.
What is, Ray, we've got less than a minute. Can Trump turn it around? What does he need to do to win the midterms?
The only way he can turn it around is if this so-called big, beautiful bill kicks in and works, and no matter what it says about our economy, if someone's paying $3 or $4 for half a gallon of milk, on and on, that's all they care about. When you tell them, look, gas is I just paid $2.42 for gas. You know what the answer was?
And of course, why would Mike let you finish? Why would he let you finish, Ray? I get it. They're not happy. They keep wanting the price lower and lower and lower.